Well, hello everyone. I hope you're having a good weekend. I've been correcting papers for the last 5 days, everybody should have their grades now for the faith and reason question. Uh, I've taken a lot of notes and I've given you a lot of feedback, so I'm not sure how much you want to read. And I'm not sure how much you want to hear this, but I figured it's probably easier for me to give you an explanation uh, verbally than it is to try to write everything. Otherwise, I'd be writing a 10-page paper. So please check your feedback. You got individualized feedback, but some just maybe bigger things. And I know I didn't fill in all the gaps within this section because I kind of wanted you to do some of your own exploration with it. But if we start with the first part of this question of faith and reason, what about a society that is entirely based on reason? Why on earth do we even need faith, right? I think probably that's easier for us today. More people would say we can live in a society with reason. We can't live, faith is an extra thing and maybe not even that useful. You might even say like reason and science, right? It opens this question of what we call scientism. Um, uh, Maybe like science is the answer, the ultimate answer. So if we look to that and we look to people like Freud and Paul and Patricia Churchland, uh, what do we get, right? If we look at them, first, I think we have to look at, well, what is our view of human nature from this perspective of a life without God or faith or anything like that, right? Just reason and science. What you'll end up with Freud is what is human beings? Human beings are in general murdering, thieving, rapists. That's basically what we are. And probably through survival of the fittest, it's part of our human nature. We want to survive. We will conquer when necessary. We might pretend to be decent in order to get along in society. Civilizations help people out. Nietzsche reflected on this as well. A lot of people like civilization and these comforts to keep us calm and protected. But really, what our nature is nasty. We are monsters, right? And if you think of, the animal kingdom, if we're just an apex predator, what's our ultimate goal? To conquer, right? That's really what and who we are. If you go further with the Churchlands, who are eliminative materialists, meaning that all there is the material world. There is nothing beyond the material world, including the human person. Then their ultimate conclusions, although they say a lot of nice things that sound like they're very pleasant, but when you get down to the heart of what they're talking about, you push them on it. There is no free will. Right? Free will is an illusion. Why? Because we're essentially like computers or robots. We're following our programming. We have no real control over our own actions, right? We kind of just like a cow might do what a cow does, and a tree does what a tree does. Squirrels do what squirrels do. Humans are simply following their programming. So then we're not really that free any more than a plant is free, right? We're just following the laws of nature, right? Following our genetics, we're following our patterns of behavior. With that, then there is no morality, right? Morality is dead in a sense. There is no goodness that's dead in a sense. Beauty, what does that even mean? There is no such thing as love, really. When we think of love, what we're thinking about is dopamine. That's just a release of dopamine, all driven so that we will eat and drink and sleep and reproduce, right? That's the real goal is survival and reproduction, right? That's the only evolutionary advantage to us. So when you base a society off of these first principles, what you have then uh, is one that doesn't have any respect for the individual as a person or human dignity. Why? Because these are concepts, right? These are kind of concepts, and they're not based on biology. It's not based in material reality, right? There's no science that will point us to human dignity. Right? This is a moral statement, not a scientific statement. So what do you end up with scientism and rationality, right? It sounds like it might be good to live in a society that's scientific and rational, right? Well, science and reason are good, right? But if there's scientism or rationalism as the end goal, we've seen this, right? And I know it's very easy to jump to Nazism, right? Everything ends up being Nazism, but this is a case where it really is a little bit of Nazism because Nazis, if you think about it, sometimes people don't really understand it. They think, oh, it's Christians that were against Jews. Hitler was not a Christian. None of the leaders of this, they were a type of neo-paganism, pre-Christian neo-paganism, but they weren't even that devout as neo-pagans. Uh, they were, they thought they were rational scientists. They thought they were modern. They were the evolution of humankind, right? Where we've left behind the medieval and the Christian era and all of this stuff. We will be futuristic people. That's what they really tend to do is be very futuristic. And Hitler was obsessed with cleanliness and germs. The first thing he did was he exterminated all of the vermin in the factories. He killed all the lice and he killed all of the rats. And then they planted flowers around the factories and then they got rid of all the homeless people, right? And then all the mentally ill people. And then all the people who were disformed in some ways, missing arms or right, disfigured in some type of way. Because we don't want to look at these disfigured people, right? We want a pure, clean, strong, modern society, one driven by science and rationality. The uniforms, the military, the factories, right? And the Jews were part of that collateral damage too. Not pure genes was the idea, right? So you killed all the homosexuals, bad genes. You kill all the people with mental illness, bad genes, right? You got rid of all the the gypsies, bad genes, the Jews, bad genes, right? It was a scientific movement of eugenics. It was a eugenics movement and America had eugenics before the Nazis ever did. A lot of the Nazi eugenicists were reading the books from America, the eugenics program. We had eugenics in America where we were going to be very scientific, right? We would sterilize a lot of people, right? Why bad genes, right? Genes were the solution, right? Genes were the future. We clean the genes, we eliminate all of our problems, right? And if people had other types of problems, like they were just criminals or something, exterminate them, right? Good genes and exterminate the problems, and you will end up with a rational, scientific, well-run society, right? So we had this, right? We had this. The communists also tried this, right? Big into eugenics for sure. They outlawed the church, right? They closed down all religion, all faith. Why would you need to do that, right? Why would you need to eliminate that? Because the communist society was going to be modern. It was going to be rational. It was going to be scientific. We don't need all of these choices of food. You just need the perfect scientific diet, right? We don't need opera. We don't need art. We don't need architecture. We don't need beautiful writings and poetry. We need propaganda to support the state, which is, again, to be rational, right? Rational. It's all about the state, not about beauty, art, culture, meaning, faith, mysticism, right? These were old fashioned, eliminate them, right? Kill them entirely. They are the enemy, right? They're the enemy of the modern man. What's the result of this type of scientific, social, rational society? Well, we can get into a battle over numbers because numbers range, especially when you're talking about how many people did you starve to death. Right? Some people would have died anyway, even if they hadn't starved to death. But, when we're looking at the deaths toll from the Soviet Union, the communist Soviet Union, easily 100 million, easily, could be twice that, killed by the communist, rationalist, scientific-minded people. If we look to China, Mao's China, at least 80 million dead from Maoist China. Again, outlaw religion, we will be rational and scientific. 80 million dead, right? If we look even today to North Korea, who wants to move to North Korea? Probably not too many people, right? Why? It's modern, scientific, none of that old-fashioned religion and things like that, right? So great, right? Look at the Nazi movement, right? Another 6, 8 million dead. They have not had a good track record, right? Why can't you just kill 100 million people? Well, why not? Who cares, right? It's not really about you. There is no human dignity. There is no value of the individual or the person. We are talking about the future, right? It's future centric in some ways, right? And again, we do want to be rational, we want to be scientific, but when they become the ends in which we are grabbing for, they end up going terribly wrong. At least they have anyway. Now, if we remember from the art conference, Ali points out that this is a big problem for the faith only people too, right? If we look at faith only, who does that, right? Well, we have Hamas who does that. We have ISIS who does that. We have Boko Haram who does that. We could go back further in history. You could find Christians who have acted that way. You can find, if you go way back to the Old Testament, you can find examples of Jewish people who've gone the wrong way, right? Even when you think of Abraham's sacrifice of Isaac, right? Kill your own child. This was faith alone, right? It's faith alone without reason. It can go too far, right? It can go too far. It can make you do terrible things, right? As bad or worse than the communists and the Nazis did, right? So on one hand, you have the communists and Nazis who are willing to destroy you in the name of science and rationality. And on the other hand, you have religious extremists who will destroy you if you disagree with them, because if you disagree with them, you disagree with God. And if you're the enemy of God, you might as well be destroyed today, right? Because God will destroy you in the afterlife. You might as well be destroyed today. God, would not put up with it, right? So you have these two extremes, right? Two extremes. How do we kind of balance these things then? What's the balancing act if either extreme would go too far? And it's something that comes out of the faith tradition. It's also slightly rational, right? But it's coming out of a metaphysics of faith and reason, which is like beyond just what's logical, right? It's kind of this transcendent element, the transcendentals. Things like truth, goodness, beauty, unity, faith, hope, and love, these types of things, right? So if we were to challenge if we would challenge the communists, right? We challenge the rational base people, just reason alone, you would say, is what you're saying true? Are you pursuing the truth? Okay. Well, if you look at Nazism and communism, they were not known for their freedom of speech, for example, right? Or openness to read what you like, right? The first thing they do is they burn books, they shut down freedom of speech, they shut down the free press, right? You can only read the propaganda. This is somebody who's not open to the truth. It's somebody who wants what's not correct, but what's politically correct, right? That's where the term came out of, was out of the Soviet Union, politically correct. So we've replaced truth with politically correct. Okay, bad start. Goodness. Goodness in the communist state is only that which is good for the state. Not what's good for the individual, not what's good for the world, not what's good for anything else other than the good of the state, right? It's just power, right? Goodness is replaced with power. Beauty. If you look at the communist architecture, ugly, ugly, ugly. right? They destroy art, they destroy music, they destroy art and culture. Why? And they replace it with cement block buildings in very militaristic type of music, right? Just marching along, right? Military music. They don't like what's beautiful. Why? It would inspire the mind to think about bigger things. And they don't want you to think about bigger things. They want you to obey the power, right? So they violate beauty, right? Maybe even just everyone wearing a uniform. We can't even wear decent clothes. We have to wear uniforms. Unity is the other one, right? How about unity? Well, why do the communist nations have to build walls to keep their people in? It's not because they think about the brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity. It's us versus them. It's not unity, it's divisive, right? Walls divide. It doesn't, they're not building bridges, they're building walls, right? It's not unitive. And in terms of faith, hope, and love, or even just love, right? Communists have not been overly known for love, right? The Nazis have not been overly known for love. Love brings you beyond yourself. They want you just to be selflessly following the state, but it seemed to be rational and scientific. It's gone wrong, right? It's gone wrong. Likewise, if we look at faith, we can hold them to these same transcendental values. Does your faith encourage you to pursue the truth? Or does it say, if you read this book, we will excommunicate you? You can't read this book. You can't think this way. You can't ask these questions, right? There's only one way, and you can't even explore anything else, right? This would be a bad religion, right? If it says don't read things, don't explore things, right? This would be very bad, right? I gave an example before of uh, Pope Leo the 13th, who I like a lot, right? He opened the Vatican archives. He started the Vatican Observatory. He started the school in the Holy Land to look at archaeological findings from the first century to discover who is the historical Jesus Christ, right? They have the Academy of this Arts and Sciences, right? Here's somebody who's saying, find the truth. Whatever truth you find, I am confident it will point you back to God, right? That's a wise religion, right? One that says, no, don't look. Don't look beyond what I've given you, right? The only book you need is the Bible, and the only thing you need to know is what I've told you, right? Bad sign, right? Bad sign. Goodness, right? Is it telling you to kill your neighbor or kill people who disagree with you? Does it say, oh yeah, you can marry 6-year-old girls and sleep with them, right? That's what your faith is telling you. That's not good, right? That's not good. If your faith is telling you, love your enemies, serve the poor, be kind to one another, be open, loving, compassionate, forgiving, okay, it's pointing us towards the good, right? You're on the right path, right? How about beauty? Does your religion destroy beautiful things or does it build beautiful things, right? Again, if you think of ISIS when they came into power, what did they do? They destroyed all these Buddhist statues that were thousands of years old. You're destroying beauty. You're typically on the wrong path if you start destroying beauty. During the Protestant Reformation, this happened as well, where you had these beautiful churches and mobs came in and just smashed everything beautiful. You're probably on the wrong path if you're destroying beautiful things, probably on the wrong path. Unity. Does your religion, your faith, call you to become friends with other people? Does it unite you to your brothers and sisters? Does it make you see the common brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, right? If it does, good, right? Or does it say, you can't talk to these people, you must be divided from these people are your enemy, you must reach, right? Is it building a wall or a bridge, right? If your religion is calling you to build bridges, on the right path, right? And love, right? Is that faith calling you to love? Right path. If the faith is calling you to hate, probably the wrong path, right? The transcendental values of faith and reason is what kind of holds us all into check, right? It holds religion in check. It also holds rationality and scientism into check, right? Are we respecting the dignity of the human person? If not, probably wrong direction, right? This is where Ali comes back in, right? Ali, Ayan Hirsa Ali. She says, right, she was raised under ISIS and then she became a hardened atheist, right? Big time atheist. And now she has recently become a Christian, right? And she embraces the Judeo-Christian perspective. Why would she do something like this, right? Why not just science and reason, right? Why would she say, no, but I'm looking for faith? She left faith. She went to faith, to reason and scientism. Now she's leaving scientism and reason and saying, I want faith and reason, right? There's something where society doesn't function if it doesn't have a certain degree of faith and transcendental values. You don't have these transcendent elements, something goes wrong, right? And she's a strong feminist, right? So if you say, well, why would a feminist become a Christian, right? Why would she do that? What would make sense? Well, because she believes that women have intrinsic human value. Women have intrinsic human value. Well, do you see that within rationalism, scientism? Well, in rationalism, scientism, really nobody has any human values. Nobody has, men don't have human values, women don't have human values. Everyone could be used and abused. Everyone could be disposed of for the sake of the future and for science, right? There's nobody has any value, right? So no, not particularly. Women don't have any particular human value. How about under the faith alone that she came out of? No, a man could marry a 1 month old girl. Right? Can you imagine that? Right? A man can marry a 1 month old girl. It's coming out of a tradition where a Muslim man, could rape non-Muslim women, and then after they do, they can take them legally as their wives, even against the woman's will, right? You can force a marriage on a non-Muslim woman, right? This is not respecting women, right? Or if you blow yourself up, you get 77 virgins or something like this, right? This is not respecting women, right? This isn't a respect of women type of thing, right? So where do you get respect of women? Well, when all people are made in the image and likeness of God. Well, where did that come from? The Judeo-Christian tradition, right? Judeo-Christian tradition. How about love? Transcendental value. You're not going to find that within scientism, right? You're not going to find that necessarily in a religion that says you can marry a 6-month-old baby either, right? Love is kind of a strange thing in that type of world, right? Where are you going to find authentic love? One where you lay down your life for your friends. One where, it's the cross, right? You give up your life for the good of others. Where do you see that type of selflessness? It's a Christian principle, right? It's a Christian principle. Loving your neighbor, serving one another, forgiving one another, being kind to one another. You can find them different places, but it's kind of strange, right? These are Western values, as she pointed out. But the Western values are rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Jewish Christian tradition. If we look at that and say, well, Ali's pointing out, she's saying, well, I fully embrace the Western tradition, fully embrace it, right? Freedom of speech, for example. Where did that come out of, right? Dignity of the human person. Where did dignity of the human person come from? That were made in the image and likeness of God. Where did that come from? The Judeo-Christian tradition. Well, I like freedom of speech. I like human dignity. I like these principles, these Western principles, which arrived in its foundation from Judeo-Christian principles. So what she's saying is, if I really want to love the Western tradition, I should explore the roots. Where did this come from? If this is amazing, right? These are amazing values, but where did they come from? They came from the Bible. They came from Judeo-Christian culture, tradition, theology, philosophy. anthropology, metaphysics. It's come from this metaphysics. And she says that it's pretty unsatisfying to only reflect upon the material world and that we're all dead and that nothing really matters and what's the point of anything. It's kind of unsatisfying as well. I'd rather enter into the mystery, right, of something else, right? There's something deeper and more teleological, right, maybe going on. So elite, this is where she's moved to, right? So this is again faith and reason. It's not just faith, not just reason, right? It's faith and reason informed by these transcendental principles, the transcendent. That isn't just a question of do you believe in God or do you not believe in God, right? For Ali, belief in God is something that you do. It's not something you say, right? If you say, oh, I'm a Christian, but all you care about is power and coercion and eugenics and living a really long time in a lot of comfort, you are essentially an atheist. You are essentially not following any of the transcendental principles, right? You're essentially an atheist. In contrast, as she pointed out, before she had converted, Roger Scruton pointed out that she was a Christian. She said, I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist. And how she's now pointing out to Richard Dawkins, very famous atheist, that Richard Dawkins is a Christian. Why? Because he listens to music. He appreciates culture. He's pursuing truth, goodness, beauty, unity, right? He loves. This doesn't make any sense under the lens of eliminative materialism of the churchlands. Doesn't make any sense. He's not ascribing to the morality of Freud. He's conforming himself to the morality of the West, the Judeo-Christian world, right? So in a sense, at least saying, Richard Dawkins, you're a Christian. I'm sorry to tell you, but you are. Why? Because that's how you live your life is as a Christian, right? You don't go to church, you don't call yourself that, but that's essentially what you are, right? Because you accept the principles, right? You've accepted those Western principles in some sense on faith, right? Somewhat sense on faith that you believe that love matters. Why would you care about that? Why do you think love matters? Kind of a leap of faith. Why do you think there's such thing as truth? Leap of faith. Why do you think that there's good and bad actions and that you would want to do good actions? Leap of faith, right? She's challenging us, right? She's moving the conversation from do you call yourself a Christian or do you not call yourself a Christian? You call yourself a believer, do you not call yourself a believer? And saying, oh, there's something much deeper going on here, right? Something much deeper. Okay. I know I've gone on for way too long. I thought I would make a 5-minute video. This is way more than 5 minutes. But if in case you wanted a more complete answer to this question, voila, here it is. And I hope everyone is doing well, and I will see you later this week.